Good morning, everybody. Hello. We are just doing the introduction for this morning's God Story. We are on God Stories number 89, Walking with the Spirit, part 9. Very shortly, you're going to have Brad, and Jenny is my dear friend from Dallas. Her husband, Jacob, will be joining Brad. So everybody, I don't know what happened there, but are we live? Yes. Hey, good morning. Can everybody hear us okay? Can someone just let us know that you're seeing us clearly and hearing us clearly in the comments would be great. Quickly, I just wanted to tell you, you should have gotten an email from me yesterday from Susan at School of Life at gmail.com about updating your login information for God Stories. You needed to click on the link and you're able to create your own password, which will save and store. And that way it'll make it easier for future sign-ins. If you're having any trouble at all, you can go directly to livingvineministries.org and go to God Stories and get on via live that way. And if that is still causing any issues, please email me, not call, email me at susanschooloflife@gmail.com. Yes, thank you, Colette. You can hear us clearly. Thank you, Scott. Good morning, Loren. Hello, everybody. Okay, so we are now passing it on to the boys. We love you all. Thank you so much for joining, and you guys are welcome to come on in, guys.
Yeah, bless you guys.
All right, we're changing seats. Here come the boys.
All right. We're playing musical chairs this morning.
Yeah.
Going here.
We have to get the administrative stuff over before we get started. We've had a lot of changes in the website, but good changes. And anytime there's good changes, you're always going to have a lot of stirring, a lot of confusion, a lot of breakdown in, communications and stuff like that. But that's a sign that things are changing. So most of the time we get upset because the enemy's in our camp or something like that. But it's really the Lord changing things, and we just got to be patient as the Lord changes not only the things in our life, but the things in other people's life. If we're not really discerning on what's going on in people's life by the Spirit, we can curse the very thing that the Lord's doing in their life. But that's not what we're going to talk about. This is Jacob Heron. He's a good friend of ours, been a good friend of ours for many years. They're over in Dallas. He leads even a group out of Upper Room in Dallas, good friends of ours. And he and I, the last couple of days, have really been talking mainly about family. Of what's been going on in the Spirit. And of course, a lot of you guys have been following us through the years. We started talking about this family thing 2 years ago. And of course now, it's really hitting, and a lot of people are starting to hear that word about getting back to family. But I believe it's because the Spirit of God's wanting His family back. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about, hit this thing on family again. But it's part of the nature of the Spirit. And one of the things I want to just share before you can share, along with if you get something as we go. I know he's got some stuff this morning. I was asking him if he had anything. He said yes. But I'm going to throw out a few scriptures here that some of you may have heard even me speak a few times, but I want to reiterate it because we really are trying to focus on what the nature of the Spirit is. Because if you don't know who He is, how can you, understand Him, walk with Him, and so forth? And there's a scripture in Genesis 1:26. It says, "Then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." And God created man in His own image. And of course, you can read on through that, but if you understand up there at the first part of the scripture, it said, let us make man in our image. And that means God wasn't creating things on His own. There was a group, or there was a partnership going on even in heaven to create things. And you can see this even when Jesus came upon the earth. The first thing he did after his temptation in the wilderness was find his family. And even in Job 38, verses 5 through 7, this is the Lord talking to Job, and says, who stretched out the line upon it? To what were its foundations fastened? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. So a whole family was there. And one of the images of God, let us make man in our image, prophetically right now, is that he's trying to make man or humanity in the image of family again. And if we can have family back on the earth, loving one another, laying down our lives for one another, everyone will know Jesus is alive, because that's the very thing that he said, that we would be known for our love. And if we loved one another, they would know that he was truly alive. And I believe that we truly can't create the rest of the things that God is wanting to create, restore the rest of the things God's wanting to restore, unless we come together as it was in the heavens. And we've got to have family. We've got to get together. And there are simple things about family that we've really left, behind. And that's some of the things that Jacob and I were talking about yesterday, just the simplicity of having a relationship and being family again. So Jacob, can you share a little bit of what you got?
Yeah, I mean, it was, we were talking about family and talking about our fathers, and, talking specifically about my father and just the things that you learn growing up. And, it's not, like Brad said, it's not a really complicated thing. It's really the simple times. It's spending time with your father, like in the garage, or spending time with your father outside playing. And as a son, having that proximity to someone that is, teaching you how to be a man, but also getting that value in yourself. But it's also reciprocated both ways. It's that as a father now, I have a 2-year-old son. When your son is obedient and he's doing what you tell him to do, there's something that really brings value to you as a father, and you feel like you have a purpose. And we were talking a little bit about how difficult it would be, if your son was not obedient and you couldn't figure out how to get your son to obey. It would be very easy to...
How it would make the father feel.
Yeah, it would be very easy as a father to feel like you're a failure and that, that you don't know what you're doing. And it gives a place for the enemy to come into your life and just really, really break you down. But, through that process and through, being a father of my own, if I didn't have a worldly father, first and foremost, that spoke into my life and taught me, values, and taught me how to be a father, and that I could speak to him, it would be really difficult. But, I couldn't imagine what it would be like without, Father God, guiding me through the process, giving me patience, showing me love, and then also me being able to, see my son through his lens. Right. And then also, in return, I'm learning more about the Father himself, so it's just this, family kind of creates this flow where you can be redeemed and sanctified. And when there's a breakdown in the family, that flow, I feel like is really, it's disconnected. And I think that's something that maybe, we're seeing in culture today is there's a lack of fathers and there's a lack of family. And so there's a lot of people that are really lost, and are not feeling their true identity and their true value.
Yesterday we were talking also about if you've got family, or if you've got someone that you're connected with, you feel like you're covered, or
Yeah.
you feel like someone's got your back. You know,
Yeah.
you were talking about that in the truck. I think going to Walmart and having a father like you did, even though there was a fear of the Lord or a fear of the Father that He instilled in you, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But you still know that if something happened to you, He would be there to have your back.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gives you like I was saying, like it gives you like a confidence that you wouldn't have otherwise, and sometimes that can come across maybe as arrogant, but it's not. It's a confidence in that, you know that you're going to be all right, and that things are going to be okay no matter what happens. And what happens is, for me, I mean, that makes you feel powerful.
Exactly.
I mean, it makes you feel like, it makes you feel like a king, because
Exactly.
you know that there's nothing that the world could throw at me that I have to worry about, and having a father, that one, I was terrified of growing up, to be quite honest. But, in that, like, I knew how much he loved me, and I know that now even more,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, you're able to walk out life with a confidence that, that I couldn't imagine not having.
There's just him talking. There's something there's a component that we feel like, or an ingredient that we're missing even in the power of God, because I was looking here on my notes, where it says, where two or three are gathered together in His name, I am there in the midst. And I want to break that down a little bit. When you have not only Him spiritually this way, in a deep relationship, but then you find your family and you find Him this way, horizontally, and then you find the manifestation of His authority starting to come upon your life, and He's in the midst. In other words, there's manifestation of more of the authority of God, not only in the midst of you, but in the midst of that congregation, or in the midst of that family that you have found. There's a confidence and there's a boldness to be able to stretch your faith, even going after things God tells you to do. I mean, I'm sure that Jesus was encouraged to have 12 men around Him while He was getting intimidated, while they were, wanting to accuse Him.
Yeah.
He had brothers that were around Him that gave Him confidence and boldness to even continue to believe and overcome the enemy by listening to His Father instead of the accusations of the people. And man, I don't know how many people that are out there, they're alone. They feel like God's telling them something, and you've got this great vision, and you feel like something's missing, or you have this huge vision, but then when you get up to the wall of that vision, because we always have to overcome the wall in order to get into that promised land, you tend to shrink back. And I believe the component of this, and you look throughout all the Bible, most all the Bible, when they broke through, it was a group of people.
Yeah.
It wasn't just one man. And I believe a lot of people have gotten up to their destiny or up to their promised land, or like when they were going into the promised land and they came against Jericho, and they have all these walls, but you forget that the walls wouldn't have come down, because of God. But God had to have people together blowing trumpets. He had to have everybody together to bring down the wall and to create a breakthrough to enter into their promise. And I think a lot of us have gotten to that place where you're at your wall, you're at that place, but man, the enemy's gotten just smoking you, because you really don't have that backing of not only that faith that you have inside of you, it's working, but you don't have the physical backing of people that are actually saying, cheering your on and actually encouraging you in the Lord and stirring up that faith.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I'm jumping a little ahead of you here, but like, I think sometimes also there's a mistake that like family has to be like your worldly father, and it has to be, your mother and father that you were born from. But that's not necessarily the case. I mean, when we're talking about family, we're talking about community. We're talking about having men and women around you that are in first and foremost relationship with the Father and understand who He is. And I'm talking about Father God, but also they're in relationship with you, because and this is something that I'm still walking out in my own life. But I will say, as a grown man now, away from my father and having my own family, having a community around me has been so key. And even in the past couple of weeks, I would say, I've started a new job, and I have a friend of mine that I'm in community with, and the story of how I got into community with this guy is, we could have a whole God story on that itself. But the way that he, as a friend, believes in me and what I'm doing, has really strengthened me and gave me the confidence to continue forward in this new venture. And I mean, he immediately, there was no question. It was not a question of like, do you know what you're doing? He immediately was like, hey, yeah, I'm on board. Whatever you're doing, I'll support it. Hey, you need to go talk to these people. You need to go meet these people. And there was a belief in me that like I really hadn't seen before in a friendship, and it really sparked something in me and gave me the confidence to walk out my identity. It wasn't like he was trying to tell me this is who God says that you are. He wasn't prophesying over me or anything like that. It was a very practical, hey, you're doing this, you can do it for me, and I know people that you can do it for. And it was a belief in me in a very real way that pushed me, and really is giving me confidence to continue moving forward. And these people that you're in community with, like for me, it's like, gosh, I mean, I've got a guy named David Porkadoo. He's back in Dallas, and the way that I met Dave, it was just, these are people that I'm in community with that I thought I would never be friends with these guys, and then all of a sudden they're like my best friends.
Right.
And I was in the most peculiar places when I met them. It wasn't that I was at church and went to a small group and they said, hey, here's your friends. It was like, no, I think I met Dave at a bar 10 years ago, and the Lord he orchestrated that meeting, and it wasn't in a formal setting.
And you are completely different.
We're completely different people,
Yeah.
And I noticed, when Jesus, he starts his ministry, like what you were saying, he's out walking by the sea and he sees a couple of guys fishing, and he's like, hey, follow me and I'll make you fishers of men.
Right.
It wasn't some guy that he met at the synagogue or down at the church, and even
out in the field.
Right. And even how he got to Galilee, to the Sea of Galilee, it was like he heard that John the Baptist was being persecuted, and so he goes to Galilee by the sea. It's just the whole thing. He could have been anywhere.
Right.
And it could have been anybody.
Right.
And
and God used all of that to get Jesus to find his connections.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just think that it's, we have to understand that family is not just your biological family. It's your community, and being in tune with the people that you are in relationship with and that you're doing family with.
That whole thing about family with Jesus. I mean, if you look at Jesus, he gets baptized in the Jordan. The Spirit of God comes upon him and then remains upon him, which is the first time, of course, the Spirit of God has now come upon the earth and remained on a man. And then after he remains on Jesus, takes him out into the wilderness to be tempted. And then he comes back out and starts finding, these guys that he's supposed to be connected to. And then after he finds all of his guys, then you can really see that his ministry starts flourishing. And while you're sitting there talking, it reminded me of when I met a man named Bob Jones. I had the Spirit of God upon me, and I had, you know, a lot of things working that were good, that were God, you know, but that wasn't all of what God wanted me to have.
Yeah.
And so the strange part about this is the way I met Bob, my spiritual father, which has passed away now. I went up to Moravian Falls, and I always stayed at Buck and Elaine Petty's house, and they would put me in a certain room upstairs. But then someone spoke to them and told them to put me in downstairs, and I didn't know that Bob Jones was going to be staying downstairs. And I didn't know Bob from Adam, right?
Yeah.
And so I come in, and they said, "You're not upstairs, you're downstairs." And I thought, that's a little strange. That's never happened before, which that it was a prophetic kind of thing. You know, you got to go along with change if you're going to find your relationship. It's not going to be the way that you have planned it. And definitely this was not a plan. And I went downstairs and ended up going to bed. It was late at night. I walked out the next morning, and when I walked out of my room, I was walking out one side, and Bob Jones came out the other side, and he just stood there and stared at me. And I looked at this older gentleman, looked like Santa Claus, you know, and he says, "Oh, I've been waiting on you," you know. And I thought, been waiting on me, you know, like,
Yeah.
Who is this guy? And he said, "Sit down." And so I ended up sitting down next to him. And so when I sat down next to him, he started telling me everything that had been happening to me for the last 2 years. I mean, to the detail, all the visitations that I had through the Lord, all the things that happened to me in the hotel rooms, everything. And I just sat there and wept. And as I wept, he said, "I want you to put your hand up." And he started to, of course, this is like the fivefold ministry. You know, you have the apostle, the prophet, the evangelist, the pastor, and the teacher. And he said, "Hold your hand up." And he told me the areas that I was called in under the hand of God in those callings. And as he's telling me this, I don't know how to express it, but it was a lot different than what I had.
Yeah.
What I had was great, but now it's like I had the Spirit of God in spirit form, but now I have the Spirit of God in manly form,
Yeah.
which is now kissing, which is actually, I would say, kind of like the double anointing, the double portion. This double portion came upon me, and I knew this was it.
Yeah.
And after that, after I sat there with my father and my spiritual father, and it wasn't about him imparting anything, he was the impartation. So a lot of times meeting the right people will actually ignite the full authority
Yeah.
that you need in your life. And that doesn't mean that you don't have authority. It means that you can be moving in authority, but in order to get that full authority that you have between you and God, you also have to have it meeting on the earth so it can be on the earth.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so when you connect with the Father this way, you're going to also connect with someone in your life that's going to be completely different, because Bob Jones was completely different than I was. But when it connected, it brought everything together with me on the earth. And it's almost like I had this confidence that was a lot greater than what I had before. And when that started, when that crescendo started, it felt like I could do anything, because I was like you with the Father. If I got in trouble, or if I had a question, or something was going on in my life, I could pick up the phone, you know, and I would call him.
Right.
And there were several times I'd pick up the phone, and when I would call him, he would answer the per he'd tell me, he'd just say, "Hold on," and he'd tell me exactly what I needed to hear.
Yeah.
Because of our divine connection, if per se. And I think that's I mean, you look at when Jesus met Peter, immediately he knew who he was in the spirit, and he called him by a different name.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, he knew who he was, because it wasn't just because he's trying to be hyper spiritual. It's because there was a divine relationship connection there, I believe.
Yeah.
It's like us being divinely connected. if you're divinely connected, now I'm not talking about religiously connected. I'm talking about really, you know that you're connected to one another. You love one another. You're not connected to one another for ministry. You're connected to one another because it's life. It's true life.
Yeah.
And you feel that love. Well, when you feel that love, you automatically know who that person is.
Yeah.
You don't have to try to be hyper spiritual to try to figure out who they are.
Yeah. No, it's funny, you know, and maybe you guys can relate this. If you've ever like walked into a room and you see someone and you're like, I want to know that person. There's something, and that happens to me a lot. Yeah. You know, like I can walk into a room and that can be anywhere. I could be one of my best friends. I literally was like standing in line for an interview and I saw this guy, you know, and it's like, I'm going to go meet this guy, right. You know, and, you know, being a lifelong friend of mine. And I think that we have those moments, you know, throughout our life where you see someone, you know, and you're like, you just instantly have a connection with that person.
Exactly.
Whatever it is, you know, and it, you know, and then sometimes that's not necessarily the case. It can be the most unsuspecting person, you know, that you think, gosh, this guy drives me nuts. Right. You know, but the more and more you're around them, you start to really realize like what kind of person they are, and you know, and then all of a sudden you're best friends with them. And so I just think, you know, going back to kind of what you were saying about Bob Jones being able to pick up the phone, one thing that I think has happened today is that there's so many people that they don't have someone that they can pick the phone up and they can call, and they're looking right. for answers. And what they're doing is they're getting online, they're getting on Facebook, they're watching TV.
Trying to Google it.
Yeah, trying to Google it, you know, and you're getting your answers from all the wrong places, you know, and there's no right. value and there's no weight on that answer that you're finding. You know, when your best friend or your father is speaking over you, there's a spiritual weight on that answer that you're seeking.
You know, as you're saying that, it just came to me as well. You know, there's a lot of people that probably would be watching this and they're hearing this and they want it and they go, well, you know, I don't have any, you know, family. I haven't had that connection. I'm going to tell you, there's something in the Matthew 4:18 through 22. Two things I want to pinpoint here. When Jesus came walking by, and you know, you see Peter, Andrew, and his brother, they're casting the net, you know, and he basically gives them an invitation. They drop everything and they follow him. And then he goes by and he sees James, the son of Zebedee, John, so forth. They're mending their net, and then they drop everything following. You know, I'm going to tell you what, relationship prophetically is much more important than your work right now. Now, I want you to hear this, because we're losing our moments when God really calls you into a real relationship. The first thing your brain goes is well, there's no way I can be able to move their clothes because, you know, I'm not going to be able to afford it, or because I just got this new job, or it's because it's going to cost us this time. It's going to cost us to have relationship with God. And I'm not talking about just God this way. I'm talking about God this way.
Yeah.
It's going to cost us to have relationship with one another. No matter the cost, we've got to get over this worldly mentality of, well, I don't know if I can find a job there, and I don't know if I can have this. But I'm going to tell you what, true divine relationship, when you know it's a divine relationship, and it is called by God, that's where your provision is going to be. Because they dropped their work mentality and they followed the relationship mentality. Yeah. And when they followed the relationship mentality, everything was added to them. And I'm going to tell you that there's a major call right now in the Spirit that God is truly calling us together to first, don't let the enemy say, well, you won't make it, you don't have this job, you don't have that, and then you start, how many times we dissect, well, if I move there, let me look online and see, you know. Yeah. I'm not saying that that's wrong, but don't let it are you out of you saying yes to the Lord?
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah,
make
I mean,
sense?
and you're talking about cost, and I was looking here. It says, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go."
Yeah.
It says, "Foxes have holes, and the birds have birds of air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." And the other disciple says, "Lord, let me go first and bury my father." And he was like, and Jesus said to them, "Follow me and leave the dead to bury their own." And these are guys like, "I want to go bury my dad," and he's like, "Don't worry about that." Like.
We get so mad that
It's like, oh my, I can't even like, my head.
I'm not even going to be in a relationship with that guy. He's not even sensitive to my family.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you know, and I mean, it's easy to read it and say like, oh, I get it, but
Can you imagine me saying that to you?
Oh, I would be like, Brad's nuts. I'm never hanging out with Brad again. I mean, I would literally,
Yeah,
I mean,
you would.
but I mean, these guys were like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll go, you know, and you know, when you will lay down your life to follow someone, you know, I'm trying to figure out how to put words to it. And, you know, like my own father, like he works so hard, you know, and I know it's because he wants to provide provision for his family. But when you have that, or you have someone in your life that's doing that for you, it makes it so much easier to do that for someone else. And, you know, and then it really, because you understand the value in that.
Yeah.
You know,
just watching it has taught it in your own system.
Yeah. And you know, and I can imagine that Jesus, you know, when he says this, at first you're like, this guy is crazy. I'm never going to follow him. He's telling me to leave my dad and not bury him. But when this guy leaves and follows Jesus, what do you think Jesus is thinking? He is like, I will lay down my life for this person because he's
laying down his life for me.
The disciples are laying down their life for me. In essence, you know, they're stopping everything and they're coming over and helping me hang a ceiling fan, or they're coming over and helping me put together a fort in the backyard for my kid. You know, when my wife is sick and I'm out of town, they're going over and they're taking care of her and making sure that she's all right. And when you're in a relationship like that,
it's big.
You will do anything for those people, you know, and there's a power and an authority as a group that comes from that, you know.
That's right.
And sometimes you have to be the first person to lay down your life. You know, you may be like, I want that kind of community. I want that in my life. You know, and sometimes it's as simple as saying, you know what, I'm going to do the things that no one else will do for this person.
Absolutely.
You know, and I'm going to be the first person to, you know, even if not having any expectation in return, but just saying, you know what, I may not know this person that well, but I'm gonna open up my house to this person, and I'm gonna, you know, Hats Miller is a prime example for my wife and I. We didn't know Hats. We'd never even met the guy. And someone called us and they said, hey, I've got this friend. He's asking his wife to marry him. We want to have an engagement party. Can we have it at your house?
You didn't even know him.
They're like, I don't know any of these people. I knew one guy. And he was like, can we have it at your house? And my wife and I, we were like, yeah, we can have it at our house. And we didn't just say, you can have it at our house and, you know, that's it. Or that's it.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, no, we're going to throw the best party that we can possibly throw, you know, and when Hats and Sarah came over to our house, they were like, who are these people? You know?
That's all.
I mean, and we've become such great friends with them, and we never knew them. And so sometimes it's, you know, opening up your house, it's taking food to someone, you know, and it's sticking your hand out first, you know, sometimes is what it takes to start to develop that relationship and to build that community around you.
That's good.
You know, and I think, you know, not being so, you know, not to sound harsh, but not being so self-focused on, I need this, I need that. If you'll turn it around and say, what can I do for other people?
Right.
You know, and I know that that's hard, and that's something that's missing in our culture today, because a lot of people didn't grow up with parents that would do anything in the world for them.
Right.
And so, you know, they feel slighted, or they feel like they just haven't had a break, and, you know,
or they feel like they got to do it all themselves.
And they feel like they have to do everything themselves. And sometimes it's just flipping your perspective and saying, you know what, I'm going to start serving first.
Right.
And then in that serving, you will start to gather and develop the community around you that you want, because we attract who we are.
Sure.
I think that's something else that we forget is that, you attract who you are. And if you're a servant and you want servants in your life, you need to serve first.
Right.
And so,
That's good.
But yeah, I don't know. I
Okay.
kind of went on a little tangent there. Sorry about that. But
this is the main thing that the Spirit of God had, and basically the kingdom of God is family. It's that place of love. I mean, it says where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, I am there in the midst of them. Now, he's not talking about just at that moment. He's saying, if y'all will do this, is what will happen. That may be a dimension of it, but he's talking about something that's in heaven first. So where 2 or 3 were gathered in his name, he was in the midst. So that's where the major power of heaven actually was the foundation of relationship. That's where it manifested. And honestly, I mean, if you really look at this Matthew 4:18 through 22, it's so prophetic because, and I know there's not much red writing in it, but the black writing says a lot. We have put a lot of works first before relationship. Whether it be, I know this is going to be tough, but we put our own jobs first before relationship. We put our family sometimes first. Our jobs first before family.
Yeah.
I mean, we put a lot of us out there, and we know this. Some ministers, you put ministry first before family. I mean, and then you get all these opportunities that are thrown at you. Man, you can make more money. Man, they're giving me more opportunity. But it's really a sly way the enemy's just drawing you away from the foundation of relationship with your family.
Yeah.
And basically, if you look at this thing, Jesus is reversing it. He's saying family first, then the works will automatically happen. And boy, that is so true. Even walking with God. How many of us think about trying to do miracle signs and wonders without relationship? We've always tried to put ministry first before you have a relationship. But true ministry will come out of relationship. I mean, true love will come out of relationship. And basically, you can see that Jesus is reversing that. They're dropping their mentality of works so that they can actually be in relationship. And then after that, my gosh, you see the multiplication of bread for people. I mean, you see new wine being made, water into wine. You see all types of things then created out of having a deep relationship with one another in the Lord. And that's one of the things we read this 2 weeks ago about Jesus' first manifestation or first miracle was at the wedding feast, which was in John 2. But if you'll read it again, there's so much stuff in here. The third day was the wedding in the Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. And now both Jesus and his disciples, didn't say just Jesus was there. That Jesus and you could say and his family were invited to the wedding. That's another one. If you really want to get invited to the wedding, you better become family.
Yeah.
And it says, and when they ran out of wine, the mother of Jesus said to him, they have no wine. And Jesus said to her, woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come. In other words, the Lord's not showing me anything right now. And here's why. Here's the secret why, is because she's coming just to one man instead of many-membered men. And that's what we've done before. We've always gone to the man instead of everybody. Does that make sense? There's a corporate man that people are wanting to come to. I don't know how many people I talk to who say, I just want to have family. I just want to have family, And then it says, of course, his mother's she knows Jesus, and she says, he tells the servants, whatever he says you do, whatever he says you do, so whatever he says to you, do it. And it says, there were 6 water pots of stone according to the manner of purification of the Jews, containing 20 or 30 gallons apiece. Of course, that's a lot of wine.
Yeah.
And Jesus said to them, say that with me, to them. He didn't say I, he said to them, fill the water pots with water. And they filled them to the brim, and he said to them, draw some out now and take it to the master of the feast. And they took it, and of course we all know that the water turned to wine, and and it was an awesome crescendo here. But here's what happened. God created again, just like in the beginning, with them.
Yeah.
Let us. He didn't say let me. He said let us. And so them created the water into wine. Wherever two or three are gathered in his name, what? There he is in the midst. And so there he was in the midst, and together they created the new wine. See, we've been looking for something to drop out of heaven and for us to have the new wine, when the new wine would actually start manifesting if we started coming together again. Because we're the ones that this relationship, this call, is actually calling us together so that the wine can be created new.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think we're a bunch of stones, vessels made of stone, but we don't have any kind of anything connected to us. We don't have any substance. We just got a bunch of water. But if God can put us together, it turns the water into wine. And I really think that that's where we are. Honestly, as a whole, I think that God's really going to call us to do it together. He said he called them, Isn't that amazing that Jesus is not real? If you really looked at this, Jesus is not even in it, but he's in it.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not like he's being more glorified by allowing them to do it.
He's overseeing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And that makes you look at Jesus even more.
Yeah.
When he allows them to be drawn together and to create the new wine. I think that is just... And then it says every man at the beginning sets out the good wine. Good wine that's coming is family. I'm telling you. That's the good wine. I don't know. I like being around my divine relationships because I feel like I can drink something that will cause me to get drunk. That's where we're going. I think something flashed there for a minute, but I hope you guys are still there.
Yep, it says we're still on.
Okay. But I hope this helps. Jacob, thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to pray for.
Did you hear what I said?
Huh?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. There you go. I want to pray for people, to have that community, but also to have the eyes and the ears and the heart to recognize the community.
Yeah.
I think so many times we walk through life. The trajectory of your life,
right.
And so I want to pray for the people out there, Lord, that you would just open up their eyes, Lord, that you would just heighten their senses to the relationships and to the conversations that they're having with people as they go throughout their day, while they're at work, while they're at the gym, while they're wherever they are, Lord. I just want you to just highlight the right people, Lord, and just to give them the servant's heart, Lord, whenever they meet these people, that they would just come underneath and that they would serve them, Lord, and that they would just that they would encounter that community, Lord, that they would encounter relationship, Lord, like they have never encountered it before, that they would have both spiritual fathers and worldly fathers, Lord, men and women alike, Lord, that can speak into their lives, Lord, and they can give them the authority that they deserve, Lord, the authority that you created them with, Lord. And I declare new identities over these people. They are not orphans, Lord. They do not I cut off an orphan spirit, Lord, that they are children of a family and the children of the family of God, Lord. that they do have a family out there. And so I declare just your goodness, Lord, your identity over them, and just your divine community and just family, Lord, over them. In your name, Jesus.
Thank you,
In your
Lord.
name, Jesus.
Thank you, Lord.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jacob.
Amen.
Appreciate you being here.
Good. Thanks for having me, guys.
We love you. It looks like a couple of times we've lost a connection here, but we're still working on it. But thank you for being patient. We sure love you guys. See you next Tuesday. All right. Bye-bye.